The golden skies of Aurea were no longer beautiful. Their sun, once a source of life and warmth, had become their greatest threat. In the highest tower of the Science Center, lead scientist Ray stood watching his dying star through protective filters. His hands trembled as he adjusted the instruments one final time. "The readings are getting worse," he said to no one in particular. The other scientists in the room continued their work in silence, each knowing what those words meant. Their sun was dying faster than expected. The Aurian people had achieved much in their history. Their cities gleamed with crystal spires that stretched toward the sky. Their society had eliminated poverty and hunger, and they had even mastered limited space travel. But none of that would matter soon. In less than 5 years, their star would go supernova, destroying everything they had built over thousands of years. Ray walked to the central communication array. As a member of the Galactic Council's lesser races, the Orions had access to emergency channels. They had spent the last decade trying to develop the technology to evacuate their people, but their ships could barely reach their system's outer planets. They needed help. "Begin the transmission," Ray ordered, his voice steady despite his fear. The array hummed to life, broadcasting their message across thousands of light years in all directions. "This is an emergency distress signal from the Orion civilization in the Helios sector. Our star is becoming unstable and will go supernova within 5 years. We request immediate assistance from any spacefaring civilization. We have 2.3 billion people who need evacuation. Please, help us." The message went out, repeating in all known galactic languages. Ray and his team waited. Hours turned into days. Days turned into weeks. The responses, when they finally came, were not what they had hoped for. The Zentari Empire, masters of faster-than-light travel, declined to help, stating that diverting resources to save a lesser species would be inefficient. The Mechanical Collective calculated that the cost of rescue exceeded the potential value of Aurian contribution to galactic society. Even the supposedly compassionate unity of enlightened beings sent only a brief message expressing their spiritual sympathy for the Aurian situation. Ray spent his nights staring at the communication array, watching for any sign of help. His people had begun to lose hope. The government had started lottery systems to determine who would get seats on their few space vessels, though everyone knew these ships couldn't travel far enough to truly save anyone. 3 months after sending their distress signal, something unexpected happened. A new response came through, its origin marking it as from the edge of known space. The signal was crude by Galactic Council standards, using old-fashioned radio waves boosted through primitive relay stations. Ray rushed to decode the message, his heart beating faster as the translation appeared on his screen. "To the Aurian civilization, this is Earth Command responding to your distress signal. We have received your call for help. Our technology may be behind many other galactic civilizations, but we have vessels capable of reaching you in 3 years. We are preparing a rescue mission. Please hold on. We are coming." The message was simple, lacking the flowery diplomatic language of the council races. Ray read it again and again, hardly daring to believe it. He had heard of humans before. A young species that had barely reached the stars. Most council races considered them primitive, barely worth noting in galactic affairs. Yet they were the only ones who had offered real help. Ray looked out at his dying star once more, but this time with a spark of hope in his chest. He didn't know if these humans could really help them, or if they would even survive the journey. But they were trying. That was more than any other civilization had offered. He pressed the transmit button, sending back a simple response. "Thank you. We will wait for you." The fate of his entire civilization now rested in the hands of a species that most of the galaxy ignored. Ray could only hope that their determination would be enough. The main hall of Earth Command buzzed with activity. Large screens displayed the image of a dying star and the details of the Orion distress signal. Captain James Walker stood at attention before the Emergency Response Council, his weathered face showing no emotion as the debate raged on. "It's impossible. Admiral Peters slammed his hand on the table. The Hope Seeker is our best colony ship, but even with its advanced engines, the journey would take 3 years. We've never attempted a mission of this length. First Officer Lisa Reed, standing beside Walker, stepped forward. With all due respect, Admiral, impossible doesn't mean we shouldn't try. 2 billion lives are at stake. The room fell quiet. The Hope Seeker had been meant to establish humanity's first deep space colony. Now its captain and first officer were volunteering for what many considered a suicide mission. The ship's engines weren't designed for continuous maximum burn. Technical Director Wilson warned, pointing to the data on his tablet. You'd be pushing them far beyond safety limits. Lisa pulled up her own calculations on the main screen. I've worked with Engineer Miller on a plan. If we modify the engines during the flight and use the ship's backup systems, we can maintain the speed we need. Walker looked at the faces around the table. Every civilization in the galaxy has turned their backs on these people. They're more advanced than us in many ways, but that doesn't matter. What matters is they need help, and we can try to give it. The council members exchanged glances. Earth had only recently joined the galactic community. Many worried about how this mission would look if it failed. The cost alone would bankrupt our space program, someone muttered. President Chen, who had been quiet until now, stood up. What's the cost of doing nothing? Of letting an entire civilization die when we could have tried to help? She paused, looking each council member in the eye. Earth became unified because we finally learned to help each other. We can't forget that lesson now that we've reached the stars. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. The Hope Seeker, docked at the lunar station, would need to be completely refitted. Its colonial equipment would be replaced with rescue pods and emergency supplies. Every nation on Earth pledged resources. In the ship's loading bay, Walker watched as crews worked around the clock. Engineer Tom Miller supervised the engine modifications, his face streaked with grease as he tested new power configurations. Dr. Robert Clark organized the medical bay, preparing for the unknown effects of such a long journey. Lisa found Walker staring at the crew manifest. 300 volunteers, when they had only asked for 50. They all know the risks, she said quietly. That's what worries me. Walker turned to his first officer. We might not make it back, but we have to try. Lisa smiled. That's what humans do, isn't it? The impossible things. A message arrived from Galactic Central. The advanced civilizations had learned of Earth's rescue attempt. Most called it foolish. Some suggested it would prove humans were too reckless to be trusted with space travel. A few openly mocked the effort. Walker posted their responses on the ship's main board, not to discourage the crew, but to remind them of why they had to succeed. 1 week later, the Hope Seeker was ready. Its sleek silver hull gleamed in the Earth's light. The ship no longer looked like a colony vessel. Additional engine pods had been attached, and its smooth lines were broken by rescue equipment and extra fuel tanks. As the crew made their final preparations, Walker recorded a message to Earth. We don't know if we'll succeed. We don't know if we'll return, but we know we have to try. The Orions called for help, and humanity will answer. Not because it's easy or safe, but because it's right. Hope Seeker, preparing for launch. The great engines ignited, pushing against the darkness of space. On Earth, millions watched as the ship rose like a new star, carrying with it humanity's determination to prove that compassion knew no bounds. The rescue mission had begun. 1 month into their journey, the Hope Seeker pushed through the darkness of deep space. The ship's engines glowed bright blue, running hotter than they were ever meant to. Inside the engine room, Engineer Tom Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the readings for the 10th time that hour. How are they holding up? Anna White, his assistant engineer, asked while adjusting the cooling systems. Like a race car that's been running at full speed for too long, Tom replied, patting the warm metal wall. But we're keeping her together. The ship's corridors buzzed with constant activity. 300 crew members worked in shifts, knowing every minute brought them closer to their destination. or to disaster. They had already traveled farther than any human ship before them. In the medical bay, Dr. Robert Clark treated another crew member for radiation exposure. The ship's shields were holding, but the constant high-speed travel exposed them to more radiation than expected. Just a mild case, he assured the nervous technician. Take these pills and try to spend your off hours in the core sections. After the crew member left, he updated his log. 30 similar cases this week alone. They weren't even halfway there. On the bridge, Captain Walker received another message from a passing alien ship. The captain, a tall being with silvery skin, appeared on the main screen. "You humans are either brave or foolish," the alien said. "Your ship's energy signature suggests you're running at 150% of safe capacity. You'll never maintain this speed for 3 years." Walker smiled politely. "Thank you for your concern. Will you be offering assistance?" The alien captain looked embarrassed. "We have our orders, but we wish you luck." The transmission ended. First Officer Lisa Reed entered the bridge with the daily reports. "That's the 5th alien ship this week. At least they're starting to wish us luck instead of just laughing." "How are the crew holding up?" Walker asked, reviewing the numbers. "Tired but determined. Engineer Miller's team is working miracles with the engines. And did you see what the kitchen staff did? They're growing vegetables in the hydroponics bay to supplement our supplies." Walker nodded. Every crew member found ways to contribute beyond their normal duties. They had to. Their supplies were limited, and they couldn't stop for resupply without losing precious time. In the ship's observation lounge, off-duty crew members gathered to watch the stars. Earth's sun was now just another distant point of light. Tom joined them after his shift, carrying his tablet with engine diagrams. "Look at this," he said, showing Anna a new modification plan. "If we reroute power through the secondary systems during rest cycles, we might be able to reduce the strain on the main engines. That would mean no gravity in the cargo sections for 6 hours a day," Anna pointed out. "Better than no engines at all," Tom replied. They both knew the engines weren't designed for this kind of sustained power output. Every day brought new problems to solve. That night, during the quiet shift, Captain Walker recorded his personal log. Day 32. "The crew continues to amaze me. Everyone knows the risks. Our engines could fail, our shields could drop, or we might simply run out of supplies. But no one talks about turning back. Yesterday, I found Dr. Clark studying Orion biology in his free time, preparing for our arrival. Engineer Miller sleeps in the engine room, refusing to be more than a minute away from his beloved engines. First Officer Reed keeps everyone's spirits up with her quiet confidence. We received word that some alien ships are following us at a distance, probably waiting to see if we fail. They don't understand. Humans don't know how to give up, especially when others need our help. Every time I look at the crew, I'm reminded of why we're out here. The Hope Seeker carries more than just supplies and rescue equipment. It carries humanity's message to the galaxy. No one gets left behind, not on our watch." As the ship pushed deeper into unknown space, its engines burning bright against the darkness, the crew settled into their routines. 2 years and 11 months of travel still lay ahead, but they had already proven one thing. Humans didn't need to be the most advanced species to be the most determined. 18 months into their journey, alarms blared through the Hope Seeker's corridors. Red warning lights flashed as Engineer Tom Miller ran toward the main reactor, his face grim. The ship had just entered a dense radiation field, and the strain on their already stressed engines was reaching critical levels. "Status report." Captain Walker's voice crackled over the comm system. "Main reactor is overheating," Tom responded, his hands flying over control panels. "The radiation field is affecting our cooling systems. We need to shut down the engines or—" A violent shudder ran through the ship. Anna White's voice came from the auxiliary control room. "We're losing power to sections 5 through 8. Life support is failing in those areas." First Officer Lisa Reed organized emergency teams through her tablet. All crew members in affected sections move to the central areas immediately. This is not a drill. In the medical bay, Dr. Clark and his team worked frantically to move patients away from the failing sections. The ship's lights flickered ominously as they wheeled the last bed through the emergency doors. Tom studied the reactor readings with growing horror. The safety systems were failing. If they shut down the engines now, they'd lose years of travel time. If they didn't, the reactor might explode. "Captain," he called over the comm, "there's only one way to save the ship. The reactor needs manual adjustment to stabilize, but the radiation levels in there." He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew what those radiation levels meant. "No." Anna grabbed his arm. "There has to be another way." The ship shuddered again. More warning lights flashed on the panels. "I can do it," Tom said quietly. 10 minutes in there should be enough to stabilize the systems. The radiation suit will give me 8 minutes of good protection." Captain Walker's voice was heavy. "Engineer Miller, I can't order you to." "You don't have to, sir." Tom was already putting on the radiation suit. "We've got 2 billion people counting on us. What's one life compared to that?" Anna helped him seal the suit, tears in her eyes. "You stupid, brave fool." In the reactor room, Tom worked as fast as he could. His hands moved steadily, despite knowing each second exposed him to more radiation than a human body could handle. The radiation meter on his suit climbed higher and higher. 4 minutes. Anna's voice shook as she watched the readings. "Tom, you need to get out soon." "Almost done," he replied, his breathing heavy. "Just need to there." The reactor's angry red glow settled into a steady blue. The ship's shuddering eased. Tom stumbled out of the reactor room 8 minutes later. Dr. Clark was waiting with a medical team, but everyone knew it was too late. They rushed him to the medical bay anyway. Later that day, First Officer Reed made a discovery that gave them new hope. "Captain," she called from her station, "I've been studying the star charts. There's a neutron star ahead of us. If we time it right, we could use its gravity to slingshot us forward. It's risky, but it could make up for the time we lost today." Captain Walker looked at the charts. The maneuver would be incredibly dangerous, but they had to try. He thought of Tom, fighting for life in the medical bay, and made his decision. "Plot the course," he ordered. "We're not giving up." That night, the crew gathered in the ship's main hall. Tom's radiation suit hung on the wall, a reminder of his sacrifice. Dr. Clark had made him comfortable, but everyone knew he had only days left. Captain Walker addressed the crew. "Today we lost more than an engineer. We lost a hero. But Tom Miller didn't just save our ship. He saved our mission. We will complete this journey. We will reach the Orions. We will show the galaxy that humanity doesn't abandon those in need." He paused, looking at each crew member. "The council races think we're primitive because our ships aren't as advanced, our weapons aren't as powerful, and our technology isn't as sophisticated. But today proved what we've always known. Humanity's greatest strength isn't in our machines. It's in our hearts, in our determination, and in our willingness to sacrifice for others." The Hope Seeker continued its journey, its engines now running smoothly thanks to Tom's sacrifice. Ahead lay the neutron star and their riskiest maneuver yet, but no one talked about turning back. They had a promise to keep. After 3 years of travel, the Hope Seeker entered the Orion system. The dying star filled the main view screen, its angry red glow casting an eerie light across the bridge. Captain Walker stood at the command station, his uniform worn from years of continuous wear, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Final approach readings," First Officer Lisa Reed announced, her voice tight with emotion. "Local time shows we have 5 months and 18 days before the star goes supernova." The bridge crew watched as their sensors revealed the scale of their mission. Orion cities covered 3 continents on their homeworld. Billions of people going about their lives under the shadow of their dying sun. "My God," Dr. Clark whispered. The report said 2.3 billion people, but seeing it, He trailed off, overwhelmed by the enormity of their task. David Cooper, the ship's AI specialist, worked frantically at his station. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple transmissions. The translation software is adapting to their language patterns." A message cut through the static. "Unknown vessel. This is Orion Space Control. Please identify yourself." Walker straightened his uniform. "This is Captain James Walker of the Earth vessel Hope Seeker. We received your distress call. We're here to help." Silence filled the channel for a long moment. Then, a response came in a voice thick with emotion. "Earth vessel, you actually came." Suddenly, multiple new contacts appeared on their sensors. Sleek ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel around them, vessels of the Galactic Council races. Well, a smooth voice cut in on their channel. The primitive humans actually made it. The speaker was the ambassador from the Zentari Empire. "We came to observe this interesting attempt at rescue." Walker ignored the condescension in the alien's voice. "Since you're here, I trust you'll help with the evacuation." "We are merely observers," another council race representative responded. "This is your mission, after all." Lisa's hands clenched at her station, but Walker remained calm. "David, establish a direct link with Orion Control. Let's start planning the evacuation." The next hours were a blur of activity. David's translation software helped them communicate clearly with the Orions. The alien civilization had already gathered their people into massive assembly areas, ready for evacuation. "Their technology is different from ours," Anna White reported from engineering. "But their anti-gravity systems could help us load people faster if we can integrate them." Walker authorized the cooperation. As humans and Orions worked together, the council ships hovered at a distance, recording everything. In the main landing bay, Dr. Clark met the first group of Orion medical officers. Despite their different biology, the Orions had golden skin that seemed to shimmer and 2 pairs of eyes. He found them remarkably similar in their dedication to their people. "We thought no one would come," one Orion doctor told him. "When all the advanced races refused, we lost hope. Humanity knows what it's like to face extinction," Clark replied, thinking of Earth's own close calls with climate disaster and nuclear war. "We couldn't just watch it happen to you." On the bridge, Lisa brought Walker disturbing news. "Sir, even with our rescue pods and their transport ships, we can only evacuate a fraction of their population in the time we have." Walker stared at the numbers, then at the council ships watching them. He opened a channel to all vessels in the system. "This is Captain Walker of the Hope Seeker. You can watch us try to save these people, or you can help us actually succeed. In 5 months, this star will go supernova. Will you face your children years from now and tell them you watched billions die because helping was inefficient?" The silence stretched for long minutes. Then, one by one, the council ships began moving toward the planet. "Perhaps," the Zentari ambassador said stiffly, "we could offer some assistance, in the interest of galactic harmony." Walker shared a smile with Lisa. The real work was just beginning, but now they had a chance. The Hope Seeker hadn't just brought rescue equipment. It had brought shame to those who would do nothing, and hope to those who needed everything. The race against time had begun. Time seemed to move faster as the star grew more unstable. Captain Walker hadn't slept in 36 hours, but he couldn't rest. From the Hope Seeker's command center, he watched the massive evacuation unfold across the Orion world. Another 1,000 loaded on the Zentari ships. First Officer Lisa Reed reported, marking off another section of the city on her digital map. Dark circles showed under her eyes. "The Mechanical Collective's vessels have arrived. They're starting on the southern continent." The Hope Seeker had become the heart of the rescue operation. Human determination had shamed the advanced races into action, and now hundreds of ships filled the skies of the dying world. What had seemed impossible weeks ago was slowly becoming reality. In the ship's main hold, Anna White worked with Orion engineers to combine their technologies. "Your anti-grav units are amazing," she told them as they modified another shuttle. "We could never have loaded so many people so quickly without them." The Orion engineer, his golden skin dim with exhaustion, managed to smile. And without your ship's power systems, we couldn't keep them running so long. Together, we are strong. David Cooper's voice came over the comm system. Captain, I'm detecting increased solar activity. The star's decay is accelerating. Walker pressed the ship-wide comm button. All teams, we're moving to emergency speed. Time check. 3 weeks until critical. The news spread through the rescue fleet. Ships that had been holding back now pushed their systems to the limit, following humanity's example. The Zentari ships, once so proud of their efficiency, now worked beyond their safety margins. Dr. Clark coordinated with medical teams from all species. The constant shuttle flights and emergency conditions were taking their toll on everyone. We don't care about proper protocols anymore, he told a council medical officer who complained about mixing different species' medical techniques. We care about saving lives. In orbit, Lisa organized the growing fleet of rescue ships. When a mechanical collective vessel reported engine trouble, she immediately directed human and Orion engineers to help. Old rivalries between species faded in the face of their common mission. On the planet below, an Orion child handed a small glowing crystal to one of the human rescue workers. For luck, she said through David's translation program, "My grandmother says your people are angels." The rescue worker, fighting tears, pinned the crystal to her uniform and helped the child's family into the shuttle. Scenes like this played out across the planet as the evacuation continued. Walker received an urgent call from the Orion Science Center. The star's core is collapsing faster than predicted, Ray, the lead scientist, reported. His voice was steady despite the news. We have maybe 5 days, not 3 weeks. The news should have caused panic. Instead, it sparked something else. Pure human stubbornness, now spread to every species involved in the rescue. All ships, this is Captain Walker. The timeline has changed. We have 5 days. I know we're all tired. I know we're all pushing our limits, but we didn't come this far to fail now. Every ship, every shuttle, every person, give it everything you've got. The response was immediate. Ships that had been waiting for maintenance launched again. Council races that had held back their best ships now sent them forward. The Hope Seekers' example had taught them all what real courage looked like. In the chaos of the evacuation, moments of beauty emerge. Orion children sang ancient songs in the ship's halls. Council race crews learned human emergency procedures. Species that had looked down on each other for centuries worked side by side. As the star grew more volatile, Lisa found Walker on the bridge. "Sir, at current evacuation rates, we'll get everyone off in 6 days." "We have 5, Walker replied quietly. Lisa straightened her uniform. "Then we'd better work faster." Across the Orion world, rescue teams pushed harder. The impossible deadline loomed, but humanity had already done the impossible just by reaching them. Now, with the combined strength of every willing species, they had one last miracle to perform. The dying star flared again, marking the countdown's steady advance. But on every ship, on every shuttle, and in every rescue team, determination burned even brighter. The last shuttle lifted off from the Orion surface as the star began its final collapse. Captain Walker stood at his command station, watching the readings with intense focus. The Hope Seekers' engines roared at full power, coordinating the escape of the massive refugee fleet. Final shuttle docked. First Officer Lisa Reed announced, her voice breaking with emotion. All ships report. All ships report evacuation complete. We did it, Captain. We got everyone. A cheer erupted across the bridge. 3 years of travel, months of desperate evacuation, and now, against all odds, they had saved an entire civilization. All ships, maximum thrust, Walker ordered. We need to clear the blast radius. The star behind them was already beginning its death throes, its surface writhing with massive solar flares. The refugee fleet moved like a great swarm through space, hundreds of ships carrying the entire Orion population to safety. The Hope Seeker led the way, just as it had led the entire mission. David Cooper's translation software carried messages between the ships. Orion children pressed against viewports to take a last look at their home. Parents held them close, tears falling from both pairs of eyes as they watched their world for the final time. On the Hope Seeker's observation deck, Ray, the Orion scientist who had first sent the distress call, stood with Dr. Clark. "When we sent that signal," Ray said quietly, "we hoped for help from the advanced races. Instead, we got humans." He smiled. "We got something better." The star's light suddenly intensified. "Supernova beginning," Anna White reported from engineering. "Shockwave in 3 minutes." As the fleet raced ahead of the coming explosion, the Zentari ambassador opened a channel to all ships. "The Galactic Council has arranged temporary homes for the Orion people across 17 worlds," he announced. "But the humans have offered to share their own colonies, even though they have the least space to spare." "We were strangers once," Walker responded simply. "Everyone deserves a home." The star's death lit up space behind them, briefly outshining every other star in view. The fleet had just barely reached safe distance when the shockwave passed beneath them, rocking the ships but causing no damage. The Orion homeworld, along with its entire solar system, vanished in the stellar explosion. Months later, on Earth, Captain Walker stood before the Global Council. The Hope Seeker, battered but unbroken, rested in orbit above them. "The Orion people have been successfully relocated," he reported. "Their scientists are already working with ours, sharing their knowledge. Their anti-gravity technology is revolutionizing our industries. But more importantly, we gained something else from this mission." He gestured to the new display on the wall. Earth's status had been upgraded in the Galactic Council. No longer listed as a developing species, humanity had been recognized for its unique strength. The advanced races had better ships, better technology, and safer options, Walker continued. "But we had something they'd forgotten: the willingness to help others at any cost. They called us primitive because our technology was younger. Now they understand that true civilization isn't measured by the age of its machines, but by the size of its heart." In cities across Earth and its colonies, humans and Orions worked together. The golden-skinned aliens had brought their culture, their art, and their dreams with them. Together, the two species began building something new. The Hope Seeker's crew was honored across the galaxy, but they deflected the praise. "We just did what humans do," Lisa would tell reporters. "We saw someone needed help, so we helped." In the Galactic Council chambers, a new monument was erected. It showed an Orion child handing a crystal to a human rescuer. The inscription below, written in every known language, read, "To the humans who came when no one else would, who proved that greatness lies not in power, but in compassion." Years later, when other civilizations faced disaster, they no longer called the most advanced races first. Instead, they sent their distress signals toward Earth, knowing that humans would come, not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because it was right. The Hope Seeker's mission had changed the galaxy forever, teaching everyone that true humanity meant never leaving anyone behind.